Hello everyone and welcome to PA Academy, and this is the part 5 of the video series under quadratic equation. So in the previous parts of this video we've been looking at quadratic equation, how different method of solving quadratic equation. So far we've looked at factorization, using factorization method, using the formula. We've also looked at completing the square method of solving quadratic equation. So right now what we are going to be looking at is graphical method of solving quadratic equation. Now, this quadratic equation is one of the least used method of solving quadratic equation, but some questions will ask you specifically that, okay, find the value of x using quadratic equation. So it's important for you to also know how to solve quadratic equation using graphical method. So in order to do this, there are some important things we have to note. So he said, given that y is equals to ax squared plus bx plus c. So now this represents a quadratic equation. So let's say, for example, quadratic equation 3x squared plus 2x plus 6 is equals to 0. So this is also a quadratic equation. So given that y is equals to ax squared plus bx plus c. So now look at this. He said if a is greater than 0, the graph open upward. Don't forget, quadratic equation using graphical method. That means we are going to be using graph. Said if a is greater than 0, the graph open upward. Now this is the value of a. This 3 represents a. Here we have ax squared. So that means the value of a is 3. So if you watch our video on the video I did using formula, you understand what I'm talking about. So this is the value of a. He said if a is greater than 0, the graph open upward. So that means for this equation like this, if you are to solve it using graphical method and we plot our graph will look like this. Said it will open upward. You can see it is opening upward. So your graph will curve this way. So that's what the first one. If a is greater than 0, the graph open upward. So if you have your graph, once you draw your y and x axis, so your graph will open upward. So whichever way the graph will appear, it will still appear like this. It will open upward. So that's what the first thing I want you to note. So the second one said if a is less than 0. So that means if the value of a, for instance, if you have a quadratic equation with, let's say, minus 3x squared plus 2x plus 6 is equals to 0, you can see the value of a is less than 0. Said if a is less than 0, the graph open downward. So for equation like that, you are going to get your graph is going to look like this. You see, if a, okay, this is supposed to be less than. So if a, let me write it, if a is less than 0, so this is how the graph will look like. It will open downwards. So let me just draw it here again. So let's say we want to plot our graph and the value of our a is less than 0. So our graph is going to be looking like this. So whichever way, sometimes when plotting the graph, it might be on one side of the x-axis and it can touch both the negative and positive side. But one thing is important is that if it is less than 0, it will open downward. If your a is less than 0, it will open downward. And if your value of a, if your a is greater than 0, it will open upward, just like you are seeing here. So that's explained what these two graph looks like. So then the third one says if ax squared plus bx plus c is equals to 0 has real solution, or root x1 and x2 where x1 is not equals to x2. He said the graph crosses the x-axis at x is equals to 1 and x is equals to x2. So this is what it means. He said if a squared plus b squared is equals to has real solution. What that place is telling us is this. So whichever place your graph crosses, okay, let me use this. So if you plot your graph and you have something like this, at that point where the curve rather touches the x-axis, that gives us the value of our x, which is the root of the equation. So if you plot your graph wherever, for graphs like this, if you should touch here and touch here. So the value of this on the x-axis, that gives us the first one here, give us the value of x1. The second point give us the value of x2. Same applies here. Once you plot your graph and you're having something like this, if your curve, wherever it touches on the x-axis, the first point will give you the value of x1. The second point will give you the value of x2. So that is what this third place is talking about. So this is the third thing you also have to note. And then the fourth one says, if ax squared plus bx plus c is equals to 0 has two equal roots. Now when they say it has two equal roots, that means the value the value of x is the same thing, or of x1 is the same thing as the value of x2. So what it means is that after solving your quadratic equation, you are getting the same value for x. You solve it, you are getting your x is equals to, let's say, 2, and on the other side you are getting your x is equals to 2. He said if ax squared plus bx plus c is equals to 0, he said if ax squared plus bx plus equals to 0 has two equal roots, the graph touches the x-axis at the point x is equals to x1 and is equals to x2. He said this means the x-axis is tangent to the graph at x is equals to x1 and is equals to x2. So this is what it means. So if at any point in time where you plot your graph and you see that it is just touching one point like this, that means the value of our x is x1 is same thing as what? X2. Don't forget, when you are solving quadratic equation, you get the two value for x. So once it's touching like this, so either it's opening upward or opening downward. Once it's touching just one point, unlike here whereby it is touching 2 points, where this is the x1 and this is the value for x2. So right here, this is the value for x1, this is x2. But if it is just touching one point, so that's that point, let's say this place is 2, so let's say this is 0, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, and this is -1. So that means for if you plot your graph and you get something like this, so that means our x1 is equals to 2. Also our x2 will also give us 2. So these are just the things I want you to note. So just note these four rules when you are doing a quadratic equation using graphical method. So in the next video, we are going to be solving example, and you are going to really understand what this laws is all about and how to apply them. So I'll see you in the next part of this video when we are going to be solving real examples. So don't forget, if you are yet to subscribe to this channel, kindly click on the subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next video.